Baby, let me tell you a secret. Actually, I am Liu Ruyan, the young lady from the Jing circle, you know? Hey ha! I have a secret to tell you too. Actually, I'm Diga. Baby, I'm serious. I really am Liu Ruyan. Alright, V, I'll give you 500 to test your strength. Green bubbles, 5 million reached. Just got out of the shower. My online dating partner sent a message. Baby, look up at the sky quickly. I was instantly speechless. It's pitch dark out here in the late night. What's there to look at? Because I had just received her voluntary gift of 5 million last night. I could only patiently reply, good boy, tonight's night is as deep as my love. Love that runs deep, she replied in seconds. Baby, don't you think the shape of the moon tonight is special? I stared, confused. She replied, that's the shape of my love for you. I stared at the crescent moon on the horizon, lost in thought. Her cheesy love talk made no sense at all. But the best kind of love is the one that makes its own logic. I replied, good boy, the moon is in the sky, and you are in my heart. The next second, a voice call came in. I got up and walked to the balcony, pressing the answer button. I spoke in my gentlest voice. Yan, miss you. There was a moment of silence on the other end before she slowly spoke. Baby, say my name. Her voice was sweet and soft. It was almost too pleasant to listen to. I subconsciously spoke. Are you Yan? Her voice dropped. Keep calling me. Although I was confused, I still tried my best. Are you Yan? I suddenly felt my ears turn red. She tried to steady her voice. Her tone was seductive and enchanting, like a temptress in the dark night. Baby, we've been together for half a year. Isn't it time we meet? When I first got together with her, we promised to have a relationship with no face-to-face meetings. I was drawn to her beauty. She liked my cuteness. We each got what we needed. Every time she called me Zikong, I felt a little guilty. That name was randomly chosen during our online dating days. Now she says she wants to meet. My heart couldn't stop racing. After a few seconds, Liu Ruyan chuckled at herself. Her voice became more intense. Don't you want to? Her lingering tone was filled with an inexplicable allure and ambiguity. I suddenly blushed. An image flashed in my mind. Seeing I hadn't replied, she gritted her teeth and said, Heezy Kong, you'd better not play with my feelings. I blushed and responded with a simple okay. She said expectantly, Baby, then we'll meet on Saturday. After hanging up, I returned to my dorm. Gu Wuyan poked his head out from the upper bunk, grinning. You were on the phone with your girlfriend again? I nodded in acknowledgement. He asked with a curious expression, Did you meet her? I shook my head. I've only seen the pictures of her springtime beauty. He continued scrolling through his phone, disapproving. You're not going to make it. What if she looks like a frog or something? Just as I was about to retort, suddenly he let out a loud, chicken-like scream. Aha! Everyone around curiously stuck their heads out. He shouted excitedly. Someone posted a photo of Ito and Liu Ruyan together on the wall. Wow! Campus heartthrob and campus beauty. A high-profile CP. After saying that, he turned his phone screen toward me, signaling for me to look. My gaze met a familiar profile picture without warning. It was a photo of fireworks. This profile picture was exactly the same as my online dating partner's. This avatar was custom-made. Dewey, Yen equals Liu Ruyan. It suddenly dawned on me. I understood in an instant. Later that night, after the lights went out, I lay on my bed, tossing and turning. Signs of excitement bubbled up. Just then, Liu Ruyan sent a green bubble. I opened it. A transfer of 52,000. Note, voluntary gift. Z Kong. From now on, my money is your money. In that moment, my complex feelings were instantly replaced by ZY. Sure enough, compared to love, I think I love money more. After accepting the payment, I immediately sent her a love you emoji. Liu Ruyan seemed to be in a great mood tonight. She sent me a picture of herself after exercising. Her white t-shirt, soaked in sweat, was almost transparent, her curvaceous figure subtly visible beneath. I couldn't help but swallow. Her body was flawless beyond words. There wasn't even a hint of excess fat. I was so shaken, I lost myself in an instant. Are you Yan? I just want to lie on your spring beauty and sleep. It took her over 20 minutes to reply. Z Kong, it's so late at night. Do you want me to dot? When we meet, I'll let you lie as much as you want. Well, she's got a much deeper tone than my big, naive self. The conversation instantly ended. The next morning, as the sky began to lighten, I secretly got up to wash the sheets. He was startled when he saw me. Then he stared at me in shock. Are you okay? Waking up early to wash sheets? I awkwardly smiled and quickly explained. I spilled milk on it by accident. He simply said, oh, and didn't ask further. Once he left, I let out a long sigh of relief. In the afternoon, I had no classes in the third and fourth periods, just in time for a badminton match. It was against a team from a neighboring school. Liu Ruyan was also participating. Gu Wuyan, excited, grabbed me, saying he wanted to go to the court to watch the girls. I didn't agree, but he completely ignored my refusal. He dragged me along to the gym. When we reached the badminton court, the front rows were already completely filled. Only the corner seats were left. Gu Wuyan made a face and grumbled, damn, these people are way too eager. Just as we sat down, the badminton team entered, each one of them full of youthful energy. When Liu Ruyan appeared, the whole arena erupted in cheers and shouts. It felt like the roof might come off. Seeing her reminded me of the sheets I washed this morning. Instantly, my face turned red. Gu Wuyan turned to me and curiously asked, are you hot? Your face is so red. I quickly rubbed my cheeks and said, just a little. It'll be fine in a moment. Liu Ruyan's appearance was indeed striking. Most of the boys in the crowd had their eyes glued to her. Every time she scored, the cheers from the audience were deafening. Occasionally, when she jumped, her shirt would lift, revealing glimpses of her beauty. During the halftime break, Ito Makoto took a bottle of water and walked up to Liu Ruyan. She naturally accepted it. I didn't know what he said. Pervert. I heard the sound of shattered hearts around me. Not just them. I felt like I had been shattered into glass shards. Last night, she was flirting with me, and today, she was smiling so sweetly at other guys. Now she's going to meet up with some other guy. I'm just waiting to wear the green hat. I decisively took out my phone. I saw the message I sent her an hour ago. I used it as an excuse to bring up breaking up. Little brat. Why didn't you reply to my message? Still not responding? I don't want a woman who's not eager to reply. Let's break up. Then I blocked her and locked my screen, all in one go. The next second, I suddenly felt a little wrong. My nose felt sour. So I used the excuse that I had something to do and left early. When Gu Wuyan returned to the dorm, I was chewing on a chicken leg, turning my sorrow into strength. He leaned over to me, full of gossip. Heezy Kong, let me tell you, beauty really does ruin people. After Ito Makoto gave her the bottle of water, Liu Ruyan was clearly distracted in the second half. She was taken off the court early. TSK. As expected, women in love tend to lose their brains. I lowered my eyes, hiding the disappointment in them. It felt like the chicken leg in my hand had lost its taste. He excitedly added, but the girl they replaced her with was also super beautiful. I heard they called her Su Jingsu. Looks, her body, a perfect match. A lot of guys tried to send her green bubbles, but she rejected them all. Seeing that I wasn't interested, Gu Wuyan curiously asked, "Are you in a bad mood?" I told him about the breakup, but I didn't mention that my online dating partner was Liu Ruyan. He asked from his spot, "Why did you break up? Did you meet her?" Seeing him about to ask more, I could only nod and complain, "Ugly but please around." Gu Wuyan instantly gave me a knowing look. He patted my shoulder and seriously said, "I told you online dating is unreliable. Now you've fallen into a trap." He raised an eyebrow and smiled. "Easy calm, your conditions aren't bad. Why not treat yourself to something good?" I silently thought to myself, I'm actually eating pretty well. That night, when it was late and quiet, I stared at the spring beauty photos Liu Ruyan had sent in the album, looking at them again and again. To be honest, I was actually a little reluctant. He excitedly grabbed my shoulder and said, "Quick, look! That's Su Chingsu." I followed the direction of his finger. The girl not far away, with delicate features and those long legs. She was undeniably eye-catching. She rejected a boy's confession in just a few words. I tugged at Gu Wuyan's sleeve and whispered, "Let's go." I looked up, and unexpectedly, I locked eyes with someone. A deep and unreadable gaze. I saw her take a few long steps and walk up to me. I froze, standing still, watching her. She suddenly let out a soft laugh. "I remember you. Easy Kong." I looked up, confused, at her. How could I not remember someone like her? She saw my confusion and smiled, explaining, "On the first day of school, I asked you for directions. No wonder I forgot. I was in charge of welcoming the new students that day. I was too busy. And all the new students seemed the same to me." She asked softly, "Can we add a green bubble?" I froze for a few seconds before I realized, "Oh, sure." After Su Chingsu left, Gu Wuyan leaned in, with a teasing tone. "TSK, a younger girl not calling you bro? Her thoughts are a little wild. From my 10 years of reading novels, she definitely has feelings for you." I shot him a look and said, "Stop talking nonsense." He gave me a knowing glance and said, "With certainty, just wait and see." On Friday night, I was snuggled up in bed, scrolling through my phone. The moment Gu Wuyan stepped through the door, he gathered all of us together. With great enthusiasm, he spoke. "There's a social event on Sunday. Who's interested in going? It's at the school next door. The average height is long legs all around. The looks are above average." Everyone's eyes lit up as soon as they heard that. Hands shot up in the air. Gu Wuyan turned to look at me. He said, "Come on, join us. Anyway, you're single right now." However, I wasn't particularly interested in the social event, so I shook my head to refuse. Seeing that I didn't agree, he immediately pounced on me and hugged my leg. "Come on, Godfather, help me out, keep an eye on things." I had no choice but to give in and nodded in agreement. On Sunday afternoon, I casually threw together an outfit. Gu Wuyan circled around me and couldn't help but sigh. "Kong, that outfit D-class. Really?" I froze for a moment. In my mind, a fleeting image of Liu Ruyan flashed by. Then I shook my head and chuckled bitterly. With what I've got, I could only be considered a frost on the ground. The venue for the social event was a board game cafe. After we entered, I walked in behind them. Once the crowd dispersed, I found myself standing there, fully visible to everyone's gaze. I wasn't sure who whispered, "Wow, he's even more handsome in person." All their eyes were on me. Smiling, since it was a social event, the seating arrangement was such that the left and right sides were filled with girls. The girl on my left is called Shen Yachu. Her facial features are exceptionally beautiful. She has a gentle aura and fair skin. The girl on my right is named Li Xier. Her personality is rather cheerful. She's witty and humorous. With her around, there's no worrying about awkward silences. I overheard some of the girls saying, "Shen Yachu wasn't supposed to be here at all." After all, as the campus beauty, She has no shortage of admirers. There was no need for her to come to a social event, but after seeing the photos, she changed her mind. As she said this, her gaze inadvertently swept over me. The implication was obvious. Shenyachu, sitting next to me, noticed my discomfort. With a smile, she intervened. Stop making things up. I just had nothing to do over the weekend. I thought I'd come play games with you guys and kill some time. After the joke, everyone returned to the main focus and started the game. Halfway through, Shenyachu received a phone call. Are you coming over? After hanging up, she smiled and asked, I have a friend who just got out of a breakup. I was thinking of inviting her to come and play. Do you guys mind? Everyone shook their heads, indicating they didn't mind. She continued, It's quite a coincidence. She's from your school too. Liu Ruyan, curious, asked, Who is it? Shenyachu was about to speak, but was suddenly interrupted by the girl next to Liu Ruyan. Liu Ruyan, it's your turn. Hurry up. Liu Ruyan replied with an O, and threw himself back into the game. Half an hour later, the door was suddenly pushed open. All eyes turned sharply toward the entrance. After a moment, Liu Ruyan's face appeared in front of everyone. She was wearing a simple dress. From head to toe, she radiated an aura of cleanliness, and for me, it felt like a thunderclap. My hand holding the cards trembled, and they all fell onto the table. The others looked at me in confusion. I quickly gathered my cards, trying to act casual. Don't peek. My gaze unconsciously flickered toward Liu Ruyan. I saw her lightly lift her eyelashes and glance at me for 3 seconds. Then, without showing any emotion, she looked away. Liu Ruyan pointed at Liu Ruyan and quietly asked Shenyachu. Shenyachu slightly nodded, indicating agreement. I immediately felt my body tense up, uncomfortable and uneasy. My toes were awkwardly digging into the ground. I felt incredibly guilty. Shenyachu stood up to greet her, and then gave Liu Ruyan the seat next to me. I watched as the couch beside me sank slightly as she sat down. Although Liu Ruyan sat down, she kept a certain distance from me. She exuded an aura of stay away from others. Her delicate profile gave off an air of nobility and detachment. On the surface, she was aloof, but in reality, she was a bit sulky. Liu Ruyan didn't participate in the game at all. She was holding her phone, seemingly absorbed in whatever she was looking at. After the game ended, someone suggested chatting for a while. The topics of conversation were wide-ranging. From the sky above to the ground below, there was nothing we couldn't talk about. Someone started talking about the pets they kept at home. Liu Ruyan curiously spoke up. He likes those silly dogs from the Northeast. Isn't that special? Liu Ruyan was clearly trying to set me up for something. I could only play dumb and smile. I also like capybaras. Li Xia's eyes lit up and she chimed in. I like them too. Upon hearing this, Liu Ruyan cast a cryptic glance at me. She then quietly repeated, Silly dog. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was just clear enough for everyone to hear. Liu Ruyan wore an expression of delight. Liu Ruyan, do you like those silly dogs from the Northeast too? I watched as her expression suddenly went cold, her thin lips parted. No, I don't. Liu Ruyan's smile instantly froze. Seeing this, Shenyachu quickly explained with a laugh. Don't bring up those silly dogs from the Northeast. Her ex-boyfriend liked them too, after they broke up. Now, whenever she hears about those silly dogs, she gets all angry. I paused for a moment. So it turns out that Ito Makoto also liked those silly dogs from the Northeast. As the conversation went on, people started losing interest. They began fiddling with their phones. Liu Ruyan noticed and teased. Don't just play with your phones. Let's all say how long we've been single. Once the question was thrown out, everyone seemed quite intrigued. He then suggested, let's go from left to right. I've been single for 6 months. I've been single for 1 year and 3 months. Then, he turned to me with a concerned look. Hikong, are your eyes feeling uncomfortable? Why do you keep squinting? That comment instantly cured my eye discomfort. At that moment, Li Xier, sitting beside me, loudly reminded, "He Kong, it's your turn." I quickly made a face as if I were in a dilemma. I'll just go to the bathroom first. However, as soon as I got up, Gu Wuyan beat me to it and answered for me. "It's fine, I'll answer for him. He Kong just broke up 2 days ago." After saying that, he wore a look as if to say, "No need to thank me. Big brother, you're actually quite nice." Shen Yachu exclaimed in surprise. "How coincidental. Liu Ruyan also just got dumped 2 days ago." At this moment, all I wanted to say was speechless. Liu Ruyan raised her eyes to look at me. Those pitch-black eyes seemed to hold curiosity. After a few seconds, she curled her lips into a cold smile. "How coincidental. My boyfriend's last name is also he." I could practically feel the crowd's attention on me, like they were waiting for the next drama to unfold. I forced myself to meet Liu Ruyan's gaze. It really is quite a coincidence. I also just got dumped. It tracks like. Gu Wuyan chimed in. He King's ex-girlfriend is quite pretty, so breaking up was probably for the best. Liu Ruyan lightly tapped her fingers on the table, as if pondering something. This atmosphere was unbearable for me, so I invited Gu Wuyan to come with me to the bathroom. Liu Ruyan was sitting right next to me. I'd have to pass by her to leave. So I whispered, "Could you move a little? I need to use the restroom." She clearly heard me, but didn't make any move to get up. I had no choice but to carefully shift past her, trying to avoid any physical contact. I saw her puffing out her cheeks, as if she was holding something in. Her expression grew darker and more unreadable. I steeled myself and decided to walk quickly past her. But suddenly, Liu Ruyan jumped to her feet. I panicked, trying to step back. But my steps were unsteady, and my whole body lost its balance, sending me falling backward. Just as I was about to fall, Liu Ruyan reacted quickly, catching me by the waist and pulling me back up. The position was close and warm, almost intimate, and my hands were pressed against her abdomen. I could clearly feel the heat rising on my face, completely out of my control. As my awareness returned, I quickly pulled my hands away. My head hung low, practically like an ostrich's. Everyone around seemed to be enjoying the spectacle. "Well, since it's such a coincidence, why don't you just get together already? Be a couple." The teasing voices filled my ears. I quickly stepped back, putting distance between me and Liu Ruyan. Then I waved my hand to explain. "Stop. This isn't possible." Seeing Liu Ruyan's displeased expression, it was clear she didn't like being the subject of such teasing. So I decided to end this little drama myself. Gu Wuyan was standing right next to me. I quickly grabbed him and hurriedly led him out the door. As soon as we were outside, Gu Wuyan wrapped his arm around mine and said, "If I didn't know that Liu Ruyan likes Ito Makoto, I'd almost think you to had something going on." Gu Wuyan raised an eyebrow and looked at me. "Come on, tell me, what was the feeling like just now? Isn't Liu Ruyan's figure just top tier?" He continued. "Woo, too bad I can't ship you two as a couple." "Better not. I'm making a quick getaway here. Don't tear me apart." Thankfully, I was smart back then. I deliberately created a new account and started an online relationship with her. Otherwise, I'd be caught today. After the gathering ended, everyone exchanged WeChat contacts and added each other's green bubbles. But Liu Ruyan didn't add anyone. She was being quite aloof. By the time we walked out of the shop, it was already completely dark. Shen Yachu immediately suggested we grab a meal before heading back to school. The place they chose was a bit far, so we needed to drive there. Li Xia, Liu Ruyan, and Shen Yachu all drove themselves, which meant we had to figure out carpooling. Li Xia enthusiastically waved at me. "He Kong, you're riding in my car. My car has capybaras. You'll definitely like it." Shen Yachu slapped her own head and said, "Shut up." She then instructed the other girls to all ride with Li Xia. Shen Yachu also invited a few of the guys from the neighboring dorm to ride in her car. Now, only Liu Ruyan's car had space left. And the front passenger seat was the real dilemma. I definitely wasn't sitting there. So I grabbed Gu Wuyan's hand, took a quick step, and opened the backseat door. Just as I was about to climb in, Liu Ruyan turned around and glared at me. "Silly dog, get in the front." I muttered under my breath, "No way! You can't just tell me to sit there. It's so embarrassing." Seeing this, Gu Wuyan immediately grabbed me and pulled me away. "He Kong, we're sitting in the back." Then they climbed into the back seat at lightning speed and quickly shut the door behind them, leaving me all alone, caught in the wind, feeling helpless. In the end, I had no choice but to begrudgingly climb into the front seat. As soon as I got in, I saw the big, glaring words on the seat in front of me. "Boyfriend's exclusive seat." Clearly, it was meant for the campus heartthrob Ito Makoto. I quickly looked away and wiped the smile off my face. In a huff, I took out my phone and started scrolling through SP. Gu Wuyan leaned over to peek at my screen. The video paused just as a female streamer was dancing. He raised his eyebrows and laughed. "Good taste. I see this girl all the time. Her dancing is top-notch." I smiled and agreed. "She really is." He continued excitedly, "Plus, her figure is amazing." I glanced at Liu Ruyan out of the corner of my eye. She had a straight line for a smile unreadable, but the vibe was full of subtle tension. For some reason, I suddenly backed off. I silently turned off SP and opened my reading app. When we reached the destination and got out of the car, I immediately saw Ito Makoto waiting at the entrance of the shop. As our eyes met, he gave me a slight smile. I froze for a second, then returned the smile. Licia and the others seemed to be very familiar with him. They all called him Fujichang Ito Makoto's name in Chinese. Gu Wuyan leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Weren't you two supposed to have broken up?" I shook my head. "I don't understand either." Ito Makoto waved at us from a short distance. "Let's go, silly dog." I felt a surge of frustration. I shot her an unwilling glare. To my surprise, she didn't get angry. Instead, she watched me with interest. A faint, almost imperceptible smile tugged at the corner of her lips. Once we entered the private room, I deliberately kept my distance from Liu Ruyan. Ito Makoto naturally sat beside her. He looked at me and couldn't help but lower his gaze. "He Kong, I know you." I froze for a moment. He paused for a second, then added, "At the freshman welcome party when you performed on stage, all the girls in our class said you were handsome." Hearing him compliment me so openly, I felt a bit shy. I quickly smiled and thanked him. I didn't dislike Ito Makoto at all. On the contrary, I thought he was quite good-looking. He had a nice personality too. As we were eating, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a burning gaze directed at me from the front. I absent-mindedly looked up, and right then I met Liu Ruyan's distant and indifferent eyes. I quickly looked away, trying to avoid unnecessary contact. After all, she already had someone she liked, and that person was right there in the room. Licia was sitting next to me. She suddenly asked very attentively, "He Kong, do you want orange juice or passion fruit juice?" I smiled and replied, "Orange juice, please." "Got it. I'll pour it for you now." At that moment, Ito Makoto spoke up. "Licia, how about I switch seats with you?" He winked playfully. "I have something private to say to He Kong," Licia murmured quietly. Reluctantly, Licia got up. Ito Makoto jogged to my side and sat down. He lowered his voice and asked, "He Kong, I'm sorry to ask, do you have a girlfriend?" I shook my head, confused. He seemed a bit surprised. "How is it possible? You're so handsome and still single?" If I were a girl, I'd definitely make the first move. I blushed, feeling a little shy. His eyelashes fluttered. A gentle smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Actually, someone asked me to check in on you." Her. He didn't want to trouble you, so he sent me to ask for your thoughts first. His tone paused for a moment, the corner of his lips curving involuntarily. "You probably know her too." I instinctively asked, "Who?" He chuckled lightly. "Su Chingsu." My gaze froze. Shock and surprise filled my eyes. How could that be? He nodded seriously. "You two are talking in secret?" Ito Makoto flashed a mischievous smile. "Can't tell you," he said naturally. "I'm just passing by with Li Shir. You should be careful going back. Think about what I just mentioned. Su Chingsu is my friend's sister. She's a reliable person." After saying that, he walked over to Liu Ruyan. He affectionately patted her arm and said, "These four handsome guys are in your hands now. Make sure to send them back to the dorm safely." Liu Ruyan shot him a lazy glance and said, "I know." He winked warmly at me again. "He Kong. See you next time." Okay. After saying that, he got into Li Shia's car without looking back. Once again, I took over his exclusive spot. On the way back, with Liu Ruyan, the human refrigerator, in the car, everyone remained silent. When we reached the school gate, Gu Wuyan and the others thanked Liu Ruyan before rushing to open the car doors and get out. I was slower because I had to adjust my seatbelt. Just as I was unbuttoning the seatbelt, I heard the sound of the lock clicking shut. I quickly turned to look at Liu Ruyan, confusion filling my eyes. She lowered the car window and said to Gu Wuyan and the others, "Let me borrow him for a bit." As the window rolled up, Liu Ruyan leaned closer. Her presence felt overwhelming, her sharp profile under the streetlights looking cold and distant. I stiffened, not daring to move. She glanced at me, her smile faint. Then she reached over and tugged at my seatbelt. She slowly clicked it back into place. "Well, now you're scared?" I couldn't help but feel a little dazed. Maybe Liu Ruyan had guessed something. Once she settled in, she slammed the gas pedal and the car sped off. I tried to calm the panic rising in my chest. "Where are you taking me?" Liu Ruyan's jaw tightened, her voice cold. "To settle things." A small, nervous laugh escaped me. I wasn't sure what to say. The car stopped at a park not far from the school. Liu Ruyan turned her head and looked at me. "Let's walk." After getting out of the car, we walked side by side along the leisure path. Neither of us spoke. The flickering light from the street lamps stretched our shadows long. Liu Ruyan's long legs took quick strides, and before long, I was falling behind. She stopped and turned to look at me. Suddenly, she leaned in close. Whispering in my ear, she asked, "Should I call you He Xiaoxiang or He Kong?" "I'm not." I quickly waved my hands to deny it. Liu Ruyan lowered her gaze and smiled. "Do you think I'm blind? People who cheat remember to wipe their mouths. You just put the phone case I customized for you right there in front of me. Do you think I can't see?" I was speechless. I was about to resort to the last trick in the book, but just as I took a step, Liu Ruyan saw through me. "How about it? Planning to run again?" In her eyes was a hint of confusion and grievance, like a little dog abandoned by its owner. I couldn't help but want to reach out and pet her. But then I thought of Ito Chung. I steeled myself and directly rejected her. "Liu Ruyan, we're not suitable. Are you really trying to have your cake and eat it too, so openly?" I had no choice but to patiently try to reason with her. "We've already broken up. What's happening now isn't right." She looked at me with reddened eyes, her voice stubborn. "It doesn't count." I didn't agree. She acted like it was only natural for her to be the one in the wrong. I felt my anger rising. Just then, my phone rang. The words I was about to say were suddenly interrupted. I answered the phone. "He Kong, they're going to check the room soon. You need to hurry back." I cautiously looked up. "Can you drop me off first?" She closed her eyes for a moment. Her usually cold voice seemed a little weak this time. "Fine." I shifted my gaze away, choosing to ignore her and focus on the situation. I wasn't disappointed. If only she hadn't been so messed up. If she wasn't so rotten, I wouldn't have given up on such a beautiful, rich girl from the top of the capital circle. Just as I was about to get into the car, Liu Ruyan blocked my way with her body. Her voice sounded pitiful. Baby ... Can you at least add me back on Green Bubble? I glared at her. Don't call me baby. She looked at me as if it was the most natural thing in the world. I can't help it. It just slips out. You've always liked my spring light, haven't you? Come on, touch it. Her tone dragged out the words, like she was afraid I would refuse. The next second, I quickly raised my hand to stop her. No! In public like this? There's a camera ahead. Anyone who doesn't know might think I'm harassing a good girl. To my surprise, she gave me a pitiful glare. You've really changed. Those girls in SP are younger, prettier, have better bodies, and more money than me. Why do you look at them but not me? I was speechless. Who would have thought that the cold, high-maintenance girl from the capital circle is like this behind the scenes? Faced with her green tea level skills, I had no choice but to add her back on Green Bubble. The ride back only took a few minutes, but it felt like it lasted for over 10 minutes with Liu Ruyan driving. If I hadn't been urging her constantly, even the pedestrians on the side of the road would have been faster than her car. When we finally got back to the dorm, Liu Ruyan and the others immediately gathered around with curious looks. What's going on between you and Liu Ruyan? I jokingly said. Personal grudges. Liu Ruyan curled his lips. He clearly didn't believe me. Seeing that I wasn't spilling any details, he gave up on digging further. After we finished washing up, everyone gathered on the beds, playing on their phones. I got a message from Su Ching-su. Hey, He Kong, are you free to grab a meal together? I hesitated for a moment, unsure how to respond, but then I saw that she was typing again. Another message popped up. I hope my feelings don't trouble you. Seeing her misunderstanding, I quickly typed back. No, not at all. Don't think too much about it. She replied. So you're saying yes? I was instantly frustrated. Fine. Meanwhile, Liu noticed that Liu Ruyan hadn't come back yet. So she sent her a message. Where have you been? Liu Ruyan lazily raised her eyelids and responded. Just dropping him off. He Kong? Yeah. Liu couldn't help herself. Wow. Do you like him? It's clear you didn't just come for the meal. Turns out the real intention wasn't the food. Don't say that, but ... He's actually my ideal type. Liu Ruyan's tone suddenly turned cold. Don't get any ideas. He's mine, Liu, stunned, reply. Are you crazy or something? And now she's pulling the whole dominant CEO routine. He Kong clearly doesn't want anything to do with you. Liu Ruyan gritted her teeth. Shut up. After reluctantly adding her Green Bubble back, Liu Ruyan would send me suggestive photos every so often. It was like she was openly trying to lure me in. Am I really that weak-willed? I'd only sneak a glance at them late at night. But when it came to Ito Seiji, his social media was a whole different world. He was always posting about his relationship. And occasionally, there would be gym photos. One comment stood out. Why don't you ever post a full-face photo of your partner? Ito Seiji replied. She's shy and doesn't like showing her face. I was left confused. She didn't show her face when they were online dating. And even in real life, she refuses to. Isn't this classic bad girl behavior? One day, I finally couldn't take it anymore. Can't you show some decorum? Liu Ruyan replied. Explain yourself. I replied indignantly. You have a boyfriend. How can you act like this? Don't you know the rules for women? Don't flirt with younger guys. Don't be warm and seductive. Don't send suggestive pics. Most importantly, don't stay in contact with your exes. She defensively responded. I am following the rules. I only show these to my boyfriend. I couldn't help but scoff internally. Well, it seems like you have more than one boyfriend. Just then, Su Ching-su messaged me, reminding me of our dinner plans. So I forgot to reply to Liu Ruyan. At the restaurant, as soon as Su Ching-su and I sat down, a couple walked in through the door. The guy had his arm around the girl's shoulders, both of them smiling. Isn't that Ito Seiji? But the girl beside him was definitely not Liu Ruyan. Are they all playing this big of a game? I didn't dare ask, nor did I want to look any longer. Su noticed my gaze and softly asked, "What's wrong?" I panicked, afraid that Ito Seiji would notice, so I quickly turned her away. I spoke in a calm voice. Su, I'm hungry." She looked at me gently. "I'll order for you now." When she didn't turn around, my anxious heart instantly calmed down. After the dishes were served, I had barely picked up my chopsticks when Liu Ruyan sent a voice message. I hung up. She sent another. Su hesitated for a moment. She carefully chose her words. "Do you want to answer? It might be urgent." Under her probing gaze, I reluctantly answered the call. Liu Ruyan wasted no time. "He Kong, where are you?" "I'm eating." She asked, "With who?" I immediately felt guilty. I quickly replied, "It's nothing, I'll hang up now. I'm eating, okay?" When I looked up, Ito Seiji and I were seated across from each other with other girls at the table. I was worried she might not take it well. She stood beside me, full of hurt and anger. Ito Seiji noticed her and immediately walked toward our table. I closed my eyes for a second. What kind of chaotic situation is this? It's honestly exhausting. Ito Seiji, noticing the tension, asked curiously, "What's going on?" And at that moment, our positions had formed a triangle too complicated for comfort. Su curiously glanced between us. Liu Ruyan coldly snorted and asked, "You're ignoring my messages just to eat with other women?" I replied defiantly, "Don't mind me." She froze for a second, glaring at me in disbelief. "You're my boyfriend. I don't care about anyone else." Now it was my turn to be stunned. I asked, "Isn't your boyfriend Ito Seiji?" She laughed a bit crazily. "Who told you that?" I mumbled, "Everyone thinks so." Ito Seiji, standing nearby, quickly waved his hands. "He Kong, I think there's been some misunderstanding. Liu Ruyan and I are just neighbors. We're not anything more. Don't let my girlfriend hear this. She gets jealous." Ito Seiji suddenly realized and asked, "When did you two get together?" I had no idea. Liu Ruyan explained, each word sharp. "He's my online boyfriend." Ito Seiji suddenly understood. "He Kong, so you dumped her?" He gave me a thumbs up. "Nice job." Liu Ruyan grabbed my wrist and, with an arrogant tone, said to Su, "I'm taking him now. I even bought him." "See you," Ito Seiji, grinning, teased. "While you're at it, can you buy my table too? Save your brother-in-law some money." Liu Ruyan shot him a glare, a proud look on her face. "Let her pay. My money's for my husband." I looked at Su apologetically. I promised to eat with her, but halfway through, I abandoned her. It felt a bit inconsiderate. She smiled and comforted me. "It's okay." Liu Ruyan took me to her off-campus apartment. I was a bit cautious, eyeing her suspiciously, but to my surprise, she led me straight to the master bedroom and smiled. "Baby, this will be our room." I couldn't believe it. She was definitely getting a little too bold, but for some reason, I didn't mind it as much as I thought I would. Her gaze settled on my face, intense and fiery. My cheeks couldn't help but heat up. The atmosphere gradually became warmer. A soft laugh came from nearby. "All right, I won't tease you anymore." She took my hand and we stood face to face. "Why didn't you ask me if there was a misunderstanding?" I replied quietly. "Everyone was saying that, so I just believed it." "Do you not have a mouth? Next time, if you're confused, just ask me. Don't overthink things." "I thought you changed your mind and didn't want me anymore." Her voice was playful. "Humph, I even went to that social event." I never realized how talkative she could be. But when she was angry, she looked like a little cat with fur standing up. So cute. I couldn't help but pinch her cheek. In the next moment, she pulled me into an embrace. Her head nestled in the crook of my neck as she softly mumbled, "So are we good again?" Her voice had a subtle hint of nervousness and insecurity. After a long while, I softly hummed in agreement. My eyes could see only you. When Liu Ruyan found out that Liu Ruyan was my online girlfriend, he complained that I had kept it a secret for so long. Later, he became our biggest fan and supporter. In our 3rd year, Liu Ruyan sweet-talked me into moving in with her. That night, I regretted it. But under the cover of darkness, she coaxed me, whispering I love you over and over again. The warmth of her fingertips felt like the heat of a blazing fire. Everywhere she touched, it ignited a wildfire. Baby, you owe me something and it's time to return it. I opened my mouth. Be good. The moon hung in the sky, and you were in my heart. Liu Ruyan's side story. During the halftime break that day, I finished my water and quickly pulled out my phone. I opened the pinned conversation, staring at the cartoonish silly mushroom icon, smiling with all my heart. On the side, I heard Ito Cheng teasing me. Love struck brain, but as soon as I opened the chat, I saw the breakup message. Suddenly, I felt like the sky had fallen. Not wanting to accept it, I sent another message, but a red warning icon popped up. I was completely stunned. A clumsy little mushroom now had to verify my friend request. You're still not his friend. You need to send a friend request first. Only after it's accepted can you chat. Right then, the halftime whistle blew. My teammates urged me to get back on the field, but once I was out there, my mind was completely elsewhere. My boyfriend was gone. How could I focus on playing soccer? As soon as I got off the field, I immediately sent a friend request, but it felt like my message was swallowed into an endless abyss. A tiny dog that belonged only to the silly mushroom shattered. At that moment, I just wanted to cry. But thankfully, in the end, we didn't miss each other.